police chief. And I had gotten a call from the mayor's office saying, can you share with me again the words that you shared with the mayor? Because I had pulled him aside in a public event. I said, if you're going to do a vigil, you've got to make certain everyone is invited. And the point of the vigil is not to take a side, but to say, in this community, no one will be brutalized. We will continue, And his chief of staff was standing behind him. So she called me and she said, so the mayor's going to go to the mosque. Can you tell me again what you said to the mayor? I told her. And I said, she and the police chief are going to be there. And I said, look, if the mayor wants me to come and be with him in this, let me know. And she said, oh, it'll be fine. About 8:45 the next morning, I got a call going, remember how you said you would go to the mosque? I said, yes. She said, would you please? And I said, absolutely. So I had inherited from Anna, Gregory, from her father's estate, a Islamic desk, which is the thing that you usually put on the floor so that the Quran doesn't touch the floor if you're sitting and you're reading it. But this one was a very large one for someone sitting in a chair. And I thought, this needs to be used. So I took it with me and I gave it to the mosque as a gift from the community and said, we are all in this with you. When I got done there, I thought to myself, I need to go to Shabbat service on Friday night, which is where I met your friend, and spend the evening with them. And then I get up on Saturday morning and I went to Beth Israel's conservative service. But my friend Aviva was the rabbi, so she got to sit with me. And I said to her, don't ever forget Valerie Cohen, who's on sabbatical right now, is in Mississippi when I called her. And I said, look, whatever you do, sure enough. So she wrote that congregation and said, who needs to be moving? I said, colleagues, I said, this is what we do, right? And when I'm hearing from who's doing it, there's no way who's doing it. Good. Thank you for sharing that. Bonjour, madame.
We're going to have to give make an announcement. I guess I'll wait since everybody gives announcements after the service.
Right after.
Just to tell them that even though it was in the message that everybody knows Shabbat thing.
Yep.
Don't expect anything today. I'm not going to stand down.
Okay. Merci. Let us now settle into a spirit of worship with a moment of quiet to be followed by the music of J.S. Bach, the Italian concerto played by Matthew Johnson on piano, and our friend Jagannath Khalsa on violin. You are also invited at this time to light a silent candle of joy or sorrow. My colleague Elizabeth Harding writes our chalice lighting this morning. We have always known that fire was special. Long ago, before people made matches or candles or even houses, people knew that fire was special. There was a great fire in the sky we call the sun, which made the earth warm and made night into day, and there were smaller fires that people made. Fires that cooked their food and kept them warm and brought them light. People honored fires because fire was special. Fire was more than human. Fire has power. It can create and it can destroy. It can bring light and it can burn. It can create and it can destroy. Fire can be beautiful. Fire can also be terrible. We have to be careful with fire. And so people thought that fire was something sacred and holy. Some people even worshiped fire and said that fire was a deity, like a goddess or a god. Other people said fire wasn't actually the deity, but was meant to symbolize that the deity was present. No matter what they believed, people all over the world gave fire a special place in their religions. They had fires in their homes, of course, to cook food and keep warm, and they had sacred fires in their temples. They set sacred lamps on their altars. They lit sacrificial bonfires outside on the hilltops and in the groves. They placed sacred torches near the graves of those who had died. We still today do this in Washington, D.C., near the tomb of the unknown soldier, where an eternal flame burns. In churches at Christmas time, we light candles. During the 8 days of Hanukkah, Jews light 8 candles of the menorah, and at Diwali, Hindus set small lamps all around the house. And we, Unitarian Universalists, gather. We light a chalice. This is our sacred fire. We've had our sacred moment. Let's go eat. Beloved, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester. My name is Aaron Payson. I am honored to be one of the ministers of this congregation, along with my colleague, our minister emeritus, the Reverend David Miller, and my other colleague, the Reverend Cheryl Lachey, who joins us online with a very important digital ministry that she is helping to shape this congregation, and I welcome her and all of those who are online with us. We begin by acknowledging that in Worcester, Massachusetts, we work, learn, live, and worship on the seized and ancestral homeland of the Nipmuc people who survive and remain active as the Nipmuc Nation. We offer a special welcome to those of you who are new or visiting us for the first time this morning. We're delighted that you're here. We hope that you'll join us for a fellowship following the service with refreshments and conversation. If you have questions or desire more information about this service or any of the ministry's programs of this congregation, please don't hesitate to ask. We invite you to fill out one of the cards found in the pews. These cards can be placed in the offering plate or given to one of our ushers or greeters this morning. For those of you who are joining us online, we offer you a very special welcome. For safety purposes and so that we might come to know you better, as you're able, please place your name on your video feed. Please take a moment to sign one of the attendance clipboards that are now being circulated. Though you're not obligated to sign, we appreciate your information and will use it only for church purposes. During the service, we offer an opportunity to share a brief personal joy or sorrow. If you'd like yours to be read aloud by me, please print it on one of the index cards found in the pew and drop it in the collection plate when it comes around. These cards will also be posted outside my office to be shared with our friends at other services. For those online, you can place your joy or sorrow in the chat, and we will read and we will share these during this time of the service as well. In the foyer are listing devices and large print programs and hymnals for those who may find their assistance beneficial. Please see one of our ushers who would be pleased to assist you. I invite you now to turn your technology to worship mode. And finally, please note the announcements on the back of your order of service. There will be time for short verbal announcements following the service after the postlude. We're so glad that you're here. We hope that this morning is an opportunity for rest, reflection, and rejuvenation. These are the words of Tamara Labach, prayer for the purpose and a prayer of purpose and inner fire. Holy One, you who dwells within and among us, let us remember the blessings of purpose that we have received through our lives. When the fire of our soul burned brightly, those moments of clarity when our dedication felt in line with a greater purpose, when the doors of opportunity were easy to see and even easier to open, those moments of clarity when even strangers felt like family. We ask this day to have that clarity of spirit come forth into our lives again with the power of a mighty wind. Open the horizons of our hearts and minds to that inner fire which burns inside us all. May we be inspired this day to sing our praise of this glorious life in a language beyond the power of speech, in a language of action, so that our lives might be a beacon of justice and love, and the world might know hope through our story and our song and our steps taken. We ask this day that our inner fire burn brightly with compassion and courage and love, for whatever number of days ahead are still ours to claim. These and many prayers of our hearts we pray now. Amen. Would you please join together in our opening hymn, number 108 found in your gray hymnal, and rise in body or in spirit. Or 185, 108. Wow. 185. Your mercy, eternal one, by no heart measured yet. In joy or grief or shame or sun, I never will forget. I give the whole and not the part of all you gave to me. My goods, my life, my soul, my heart, I yield them all as free. And when in silent awe we wait, and word and sign forbear, the hinges of the golden gate move soundless at our prayer. Please be seated. I invite now those with their baskets of change for change to come forward. This weekly opportunity for our religious exploration program participants to contribute to the ongoing ministry of the emergency fund of this congregation. If you're new with us this morning and have change, anyone who has change you'd like to contribute, please raise your hand and you will certainly be found quickly. Also, we are collecting for our food distribution. If you have brought food today that you want to contribute to this month's Loaves and Fishes distribution for Thanksgiving, please send it to the middle, and we will collect that as well. And I will take the baskets and invite you all to attend to your morning program at this time. Now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Good morning. My name is Dave Showalter. UUCW's 8th Principal Task Force aims to educate and inspire our community to incorporate anti-racist and anti-oppressive commitments as part of our faith. The 8th Principal Moment is a monthly opportunity to think more deeply about how racism and oppression manifest in our everyday lives and continue to hold such issues at the forefront of our hearts and minds. Every Sunday, we make a land acknowledgement, you just heard it today, stating that we worship on what was originally Nipmuc Nation land. Is this just lip service, or are we as a congregation doing our part for reparations? The Nipmucs were one of the few tribes of New England to be able to keep land continuously going back to colonization, but just a paltry 3.5 acres in Grafton. The price for keeping this land was forceful conversion to Christianity. The Nipmuc Nation does remain active, however, and recent history and craft demonstrations in Worcester's Elm Park have included a traditional Eastern Woodlands home site and dugout canoe. Home site structures are made from cedar poles, usually sourced from cedar swamps, generally on private or conserved land, which are now difficult for native tribe leaders to access. Meanwhile, I want to read to you what the plaque commemorating the founding of Worcester reads. The first settlement of this lonely region, called Quinsigamond, was attempted in 1673 but abandoned during King Philip's War. A second settlement, attempted in 1684, soon named Worcester, was also temporarily abandoned because of Indian hostility. Permanent occupation was effected in 1713. Does that sound a little one-sided and updated to you? At the same time, our majestic train station features a statue of Christopher Columbus at its entrance, a man who may have been a brave navigator, but was also responsible for the depopulation of Hispaniola's indigenous Taínos tribe and the beginning of slavery in the Americas, not to mention his use of torture and mutilation to keep the local population terrorized and under his control. The 8th Principal Task Force and the Board of Management have undertaken the development of a plan to support the Nipmuc Nation in ways beyond simple land acknowledgement. Some ideas that will be included in the plan are the placement of a plaque on our land in coordination with the Garden On team's native plantings, participation in their fundraising efforts, and ongoing collaboration and dialogue in community and congregation education. We will then present this plan to the nation and ask for their feedback. If anyone has an interest in helping to develop this plan, please reach out to the 8th Principal Task Force. I also encourage all of you to check out nipmucnation.org. Thank you.
We come to that time in our service when we're given an opportunity to share that which is symbolic of our own efforts, an offering in support of the ministry and mission of this congregation. It is a weekly opportunity to also celebrate all that we are and have been. There have been so many activities going on in this building, it is hard to imagine that our parking lot is actually big enough. I came in the other night and there were 4 different meetings happening at different areas in the building, and wondered where anyone had found parking, to be honest. I am constantly reminded by friends in the community when they greet me and they say, "Why is your parking lot always full?" And I'm like, well, why not? That's the point, isn't it? But more than it being full, I am continually in awe of the ways in which this congregation serves the community at large. Those groups meeting in the church were not just members of the congregation, they were community groups. They were groups planning programs. We have our annual food distribution for Thanksgiving coming up, and there's work being done this morning by our children in order to make that more successful. This is the kind of thing that you're supporting in this community when we talk about an offering. And I'm very grateful to you for sharing what you can in order that you participate in the growing endeavors of this extraordinary place. This time our morning offering will be received. you please remain seated and open up your hymnal supplements to number 1032. It reminds me that I have a bottom register. Along. But I also very powerfully need those words these days. So we come to that time in our service when we're given an opportunity to share that which is powerfully and deeply in our own hearts, in our own minds, or in the work of our hands in the days that have transpired or in the prospect of days to come, joys and sorrows that touch us deeply and are given another measure of meaning because of our capacity to share them in the midst of a company that claims us as a co-journeyer. So I invite those of you who have joys or sorrows this day to come forward, form lines on either side of the sanctuary, and then come and speak briefly into the microphone, telling us first who you are so that those using our auditory enhancement devices might also participate in this important ritual, and then to light a candle if you so desire. And for those of you who are online, a reminder that you're welcome to place a joy or sorrow in the chat, and we will endeavor to include those as quickly as we can in this important part of our service. Are there joys or sorrows to be shared this day?
Good morning, my name is Laura.
It's on. There it is.
I kind of feel like it's a public service announcement. It'd be against my veterinary religion to not mention that the Thanksgiving feast is coming, and your four-legged are going to stare at you as if they're starving to death. You do not need to feed them, but if you do cave, stay away from garlic, onions, any bones, and grapes, and chocolate. I mean, after that, I don't know if anybody's up for chocolate. So that's my first public announcement. My second, I want to brag about my coworkers and my profession. Little Pitty came in on Monday not feeling well, eating, but throwing up. By Wednesday, x-rays and ultrasound confirmed a foreign body. We don't get those that often, so I was jumping up and down and acting as tribune. So I got to scrub in underwear, which is another common thing. Gross things that they can ingest. And we, Community Animal Hospital, we have our own page for all of us, and we got to record a lot of the surgery, which was very cool. But then the next day, she came in for fluids, just kind of settle her stomach. Oh, and she was jumping up and down and was so happy. And we posted it, and I looked and I'm like, I am so glad this profession chose me at age 3 because that's why we do it. So they're not starving. Just ignore them. They don't need to be right underneath the table.
Good morning. I'm Beth Posner-Waldron, and I just am in deep appreciation for being here today. I'm in deep need of, I'm not going to call it grounding because Marilyn Martin said that's too much to do with electricity. I'm in deep need of just like, because I've been working over 40 hours a week the last 4 weeks. I've got one more week to go of this manic open enrollment season, and I will get through. But in the meantime, I'm cavelling. It's a Yiddish word for being over full with emotion. We've got a minister that knows what that is. And if Anne or Ruth are on Zoom, they know what that is. But just lots of gratitude for my community of friends, the community here, for the beautiful music, for Mara's bravery to get up there and play the flute.
Here, here.
I almost learned the flute, but I never got even as far as Mary Had a Little Lamb. And when I perform as a dancer. So if I get nervous and I have the nervous giggles, it's okay. But if you have the nervous giggles when you're playing the flute, so hats off to you, Mara. And so also we just had an election this week. I dug out, this is really supposed to be for Lee Blumel. It's one of the Good Trouble congregation pins that we earned this past year. And there are a lot of successes to celebrate from this past week. Also some disappointments. A lot of voter suppression still going on. There's still some voters that coulda, woulda, shoulda. And so now it's countdown mode for next year. So, you know, be ready and let us know what you can do to help, and let us know, we'll get out the vote team, what kind of ways you think would be effective. Enough said.
Oh, not before I preach.
Good to know. Oh, hang on, I'll just pop this up.
It's chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'm grateful for is my hypoglycemia just kicked in. I went to the kitchen and they just gave me a bunch of yummy treats. So if anybody wants to see me, I'm really grateful. I love coming here every week. It's something I get to do with my youngest son, which I don't often get to do. And my father-in-law was very, very impressed with this congregation and how full and how kind and how welcoming you all were. So he wanted me to pass that on after he left. So thank you. Not super sad to see him go. I get my house back. No, I got a lot of joys. My life is kind of coming back into place, and I like be able to see everyone week after week and get to say hi. And for all my fiber artists out there, I am on my last sweater before Christmas season for my father, and I am halfway done after 150 hats donated this year, thanks to a lot of the yarn that I've gotten from this congregation. Thank you.
Hi, and for those that don't know me, I'm Jan Cutman. Last December, I was at a writer's workshop and befriended a woman from Michigan, and we've stayed in touch. It's typical of me. She has an 11-year-old daughter, and I learned last week that one of her daughter's classmates decided to do a TikTok challenge of some sort, and he ended up dying.
From Facebook, Elizabeth O'Callaghan writes, O'Callahan, sorry, I have a joy. My heart is full of gratitude for the recent support and guidance from members of this congregation in helping to move important work forward in service to others. Thanks.
Good morning. My name's Suzanne LaRue. I have two joys today. The joy of music. Thank you so very much. Music is just such a spiritual language. So I thank you so much. So much joy. And also thank you to this community for your commitment and consciousness and generosity to all these great causes. And I just wanted to share that the crop walk raised $18,326.98. So I thank you all. Church World Services, thank you. This money goes toward our community and throughout the world, and I'm so grateful. And my sorrow is that we even need this. So thank you.
My name is Angela St. Laurent, and I just found out that on Wednesday this past week, my deceased husband's very good friend, Mike, passed away from a heart attack. I know we have a limited lifespan, but in the past 3 years, I've seen a lot of death, and I'm not liking it very much. We can say that, yes, okay, we go through all of the steps. Bless you. But do we really go through those steps, and how long does it take? But my joy is that I got to spend the weekend with my daughter, and she is taking the news, because she used to call him Uncle Mike, she's taking the news very well. And, we have our moments, but I'm really proud of how she's really handling this last one, hopefully for a while. And also how she's not using it as an excuse to have bad behaviors. So, yes, exactly. Those of you who have autistic children definitely know. But I have to say I'm very proud of how well she's growing up. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul, and last week I reported that it was the anniversary of my mother's passing. And had she lived, today would be her birthday, would have been her 104th birthday. But in any event, so be it. The other thing too is, a while back I told you about a friend of mine who was wandering Lawrence aimlessly, and I was able to get in touch with his family to tell him where he was. I just got the news this morning that he passed away, and so I guess it's kind of a song. A lot of people reporting deaths, and one of the good things is two good things. One, I'm going to go see Pretty Women with Pauline, and the other one was I went to a Sweet 16 birthday party, yesterday. Wasn't me, as you can tell. But it was interesting because, some of the people there going, "Oh, he's an old guy," and I got up and started dancing right, and I was, "Whoa, where did that come from?" I said, "Yeah." But I like my ego stroke once in a while. But in memory of John, who passed away, may his family find peace, because his family is all over the place. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lindsay Heffernan, and I am keeping in my heart this morning a principal of my children's elementary school. Her brother and 14-year-old nephew were amongst the victims in the Lewiston shooting, and they just wrote about it in the Globe yesterday. And the senselessness, of course, of it all is just so overwhelming. I had the joy of being able to, on Veterans Day, had the day off, and I took my kids out for breakfast, and it was just lovely to have a moment with them. And the conversation turned in a way that I didn't really know what to do with, where one of them said, I've teens and tweens, that here's what I'd do if someone walked in the room right now with a gun. And I thought, you think about that. And then they all piled on about what you do in which classroom and what you think about and how to move the desks. And I don't know, as a parent, I handled it super well in that exact moment. Maybe it was a little too stony silent, but the idea that our kids, this is the world that we're in, and this is what they think about and what they worry about. And they're not wrong to worry about it, but goodness knows, I like being here with all of you who want this world to be different.
We're the Van Battenbergs. I just wanted to say this morning we are blessed. We have Rudy with us. We met Rudy here in this church many years ago. And Rudy lived with us for a while. It was a joyous time in our life, and we're so happy that he's here this morning. That other handsome man in the pew is our grandson, Blake. He was raised in this church, little guy. Now he is at Burncoat Performing Arts doing extremely well. He could actually follow all those hymns this morning and sang great. My sorrow is, this is the passing of my father. And he died 2 months after turning 70. He never had one day of retirement. Worked till he was 70, had a massive heart attack, 2 months in the hospital. And that was it. He was a singer, sang in a barbershop quartet. He was cantankerous. He was the son of Irish immigrants. He was as handsome as could be. He's a lot like my husband. And he was just a joy in life. And he struggled. I mean, they were poor immigrants in Pittsburgh with 8 kids. But he made his life very dedicated and committed. He was a great father and a great husband.
Yes.
So I bless him.
I'll make this very brief. The joy we have right now is we have 2 sons who have been estranged from the family for a while, and right now they're all back in the Worcester area. All the grandkids are here. So we're reuniting the entire family, and it's great, especially this time of year.
Are there any more online joys and sorrows? Okay. Let us be in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, help us hold those who are dear to us, those who have gone from us in body and reside for us in the realm of spirit and memory. Remind us of our capacity to be a legacy for their lives. Help us remember our purpose in the midst of that. On this weekend, when we honor those in service to our country, help us be mindful of what they bear for the sacrifice of that service and for the experience that often mars life itself. Might we find a deeper commitment to the wholeness and health of all people that are caught in war. And help us be mindful of our responsibility this day for each other and for our four-legged and winged friends. As we turn to the season of Thanksgiving, help us find a thankful heart inside all whom we meet, especially ourselves, on this day and all days. Amen. The epic Hindu poem, the Ramayana, describes the royal birth of the god Rama in the kingdom of Uda, his tutelage under the sage Vishvamitri, and his success in bending Shiva's mighty bow at the bridegroom tournament of Sita, the daughter of King Janka, thus winning her as his wife. After Rama is banished from his position as heir to the kingdom through a series of palace intrigues, he retreats to the forest with his wife and his favorite half-brother, Lakshmana, spending 14 years in exile. There, Ravana, the demon king of Lanka, carries off Sita to his capital while her two protectors are busy pursuing a golden deer sent to the forest to mislead them. Sita resolutely rejects Ravana's attentions, and Rama and his brother set out to rescue her. After numerous adventures, they enter into alliance with Sugriva, the king of the monkeys, and with assistance of the monkey general Hanuman and Ravana's own brother Vibhishnana, they attack Lanka. Rama slays Ravana and rescues Sita, who undergoes an ordeal by fire in order to clear herself of suspicions of infidelity. Recalling this epic tale, Shugtha Shenoy, writing for Quartz, notes, Diwali marks the day that Prince Rama triumphantly returns to his kingdom of Uda with his wife. It is said that Uda's citizens welcomed their prince home with thousands of glowing lamps on a moonless night. One, by the way, might think of this as the primordial precursor to Veterans Day. The lamps symbolize the victory of good over evil, and Hindus celebrate this story every year by lighting millions of them all over the world. But what we don't commonly share, says the writer, or celebrate, is the continuation of the story. See, when they return to Uda, however, Rama learns that people still question the queen's chastity, and he banishes her to the forest. There she meets the sage Valmiki, the reputed author of the Ramayana, and at his hermitage gives birth to Rama's two sons. The family is reunited when the sons come of age, but Sita, after again protesting her innocence, plunges into the earth, her mother, who receives her and swallows her up. Says the author Shenoy, the Ramayana, the great Hindu epic at the heart of Diwali celebrations, is actually an all too modern tale about a woman who refuses to suffer any more indignities after years of having her character questioned. After years of exile and humiliation and repeatedly being asked to prove her innocence, Sita decides she has had enough. Sita chooses not to return to her husband. The earth then parts to embrace Sita, supporting her decision. In the Hindu tradition, Mother Earth is the embodiment of endurance. In the Ramayana, the parting of ground symbolizes the cracking of Sita's patience. In this age-old epic, it is made very clear that even the most patient of women have their limits. The other part of the story that often goes unnoticed is that Ravana forces his allies and soldiers to follow him into battle, even though fighting over the princess has very little kind of strategic value of the kingdom and would only bring mass suffering. Vibhishana, the lone brother who questions Ravana about going to war, refuses to fight with him, and Vibhishana is exiled. Read in this manner, the epic Hindu poem contains not only a message of the triumph of good over evil, as many have interpreted over the eons, but also the critique of the very way in which that triumph is achieved, if we can call it triumph. On this day, when the service of veterans is honored in our country and the celebration of this epic Hindu tale coincide, might we pause to consider the complexities of cultures steeped in militarism as a primary means of responding to humanity's failures? For one thing is certain, war is the surest sign of the failure of our humanity. Even in those instances when we might have great excuse to engage our military might, that such is thought to be the only reasonable response, as we witness in this epic tale itself, is fraught with more complexity than we often pause to consider. Here again the words of the author Shenoy: the stories Hindu tells our children are sprawling sagas of gods and goddesses who become mortals to fight demons. Their power, their grace, their fights, their mistakes, and their mischief. Our deities are not always perfect, but good always triumphs over evil. Just as the warm glow of the oil lamps pierce through the dark night, we tell comfortably familiar tales, but we don't talk about the long years of silence that Sita endured. To grasp the depth of this observation is to comprehend that even in those circumstances when we justify military action as a response to the evil committed by others, it is never just in service to conquering the evil. Indeed, most of the time, militarism's primary aim is the maintenance of power. I'm mindful here of the words of Derek Seidman in Truth Out, an article shared with me by David Miller. Seidman writes, "Today is Veterans Day, a holiday that can feed into unquestioning worship of militarism. Instead, on this Veterans Day, 2 decades after the invasion, with war drums growing louder across the world, we can choose to remember those who spoke out about the horrors and injustices of war on Iraq and dedicated themselves to ending the occupation." Seidman tells the story of Patrick Resta, who enlisted in the military to help pay for college as a member of the Air Force and then the Army National Guard. Trained as a medic and working as such when the events of 9/11 unfolded, he was deployed to Iraq a few years later. After these tragic events, he remembers thinking, "I believe this is an illegal act." In theater, he discovered his unit's armor was inadequate, his gas mask didn't fit. He personally had taken out a loan to purchase his own ballistic plates for his body armor, watched his soldiers painted and nailed plywood to the side of Humvees for protection. A complete disregard for people in service, he remembered. Then came the memories of brutality and racism. Numerous Iraqi war veterans have testified about violence, dehumanization, and the cruelty toward Iraqis that they witnessed. According to the Costs of War project at Brown University, more than 300,000 Iraqis were killed during the U.S. war in the occupation of Iraq, and 3.5 million indirect deaths resulted from the wider U.S. war on terror. Resta resolved to tell the story and become part of a voice of hundreds of thousands who spoke openly about the inhumanity of military invasion. I wonder what experiences Vibhishana, the lone brother who questioned Ravana and refused to fight for him, had. That he experienced exile might be, well, the lesson worth remembering too. Far too many of those who return from war are essentially exiled from their communities that they came from, whether the symptom of this exile is undiagnosed or ignored PTSD or consequent pandemic of suicide. An under-resourced or underfunded Veterans Association, or the staggering number of veterans who find themselves on the streets unable to find stable housing or jobs or justice for enduring the brutality that is the cost of our failure as a humanity. And then there is Sita, who refused after being held hostage to return to the world as it was continuing to be defined by her husband and community. I would pause here to mention that there are echoes of this kind of resistance to returning to things as normal. I'm reminded here of the work of Derek Bell, one of the progenitors of what we now call critical race theory. And it was Bell who questioned acutely whether the much vaunted system of civil rights remedies, such as Brown versus the Board of Education, ended up doing people of color much good. In a classic article in the Harvard Law Review, Bell argued that civil rights advances for Blacks always seem to coincide with changing economic conditions and the self-interest of elite whites. Sympathy, mercy, and evolving standards of social decency and conscience amount to little, if anything. Bell selected the Brown versus the Board of Education, the crown jewel, as one writer puts it, of the US Supreme Court jurisprudence, and invited his readers to ask themselves why the American legal system suddenly, by 1954, opened up as it did. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund had been tenaciously and courageously litigating school desegregation cases for years. Why was 1954 so different? The NAACP usually lost, or at best won a narrow victory. And in 1954, however, the Supreme Court unexpectedly gave them everything they wanted. Why just then? Bell hypothesized that world and domestic considerations, says one writer, not moral qualms over the plight of Black people, precipitated the path-breaking decision. By 1954, the country had ended the Korean War. The Second World War was not long past. In both wars, African-American soldiers had performed valiantly in service of democracy. Many of them returned to the United States having experienced for the first time in other countries their lives being treated differently, a setting in which cooperation and survival took precedence over racism. They were unlikely to return willingly to regimes of mental labor and social vilification. For the first time in years, the possibility of mass domestic unrest loomed. During that period as well, the United States was locked in a Cold War, a titanic struggle with the forces of international communism. For the loyalties of uncommitted emerging nations, most of which were Black and brown and Asian, it would ill serve the US interest if the world press continued to carry stories of lynchings, Klan violence, and racist sheriffs. It was time that the United States softened its stance toward domestic minorities. The interests of whites, not Blacks, for a brief moment converged. Again, the story of returning veterans. Now, you can understand that Bell's article evoked a great deal of outrage and accusations of cynicism, yet years later, the legal historian Mary Dudzek carried out extensive archival research in the files of the US Department of State and the US Department of Justice, analyzing foreign press reports as well as letters from US ambassadors abroad, and showed that Bell's intuition was largely correct. And so we have Sita, refusing, after being held hostage, to return to a world as it was continuing to be defined by her husband and her community. As we watch the brutality of war unfolding in Israel-Palestine, might we remember that those who have been brutalized do not often submit to returning to the conditions that made for their brutalization. The efforts to kill or contain people will surely fail if we do not, as a world, demand a better way of governance. Sita, after all, was a survivor of both the brutalization of her own community and that of her enemies. When a people finally refuse to be brutalized, what then? How shall those with eyes to see and ears to hear and voices to demand a better way respond? On this day, let us both honor those who have served in these times when our humanity most dramatically failed, by caring for them and calling on them to tell the truth about their service, so that we might ultimately find a way forward which does not require us to sacrifice them in order to respond to brutality or to maintain it in one form or another. Amen. And blessed be. I'm going to invite us in service to time to pass over the litany and the final hymn, return to our words of benediction and our postlude. These words by Adam Slate: keep the chalice flame burning, that flame within each of us. Be kind, be brave, be just, be merciful, be hopeful. This is how we keep the chalice flame burning until we are together again to light it anew. Are there any quick announcements at this time?
Good morning. This past week, there was an announcement regarding our shoebox event. It will begin next Sunday, and for people who are new to the church, there will be information on individual papers, individual sheets that you can read before you commit yourself, if you care to doing something about the shoeboxes, to buying something to put into shoeboxes for the African community education kids in town. Thank you.
Hi, it's pie time. We're having a church fundraiser. We're making pies for you. So if you don't feel like making a pie for Thanksgiving, or you can have one made and freeze it for Christmas, we're going to be selling them and ordering them in Fellowship Hall. So please come and see Diane and I. Thanks.
I'll be super quick. I'm Chloe Aganya. I work in youth services for Worcester Public Library. I just wanted to let everyone know that on Tuesday, the 14th, this upcoming Tuesday, we are having a Native American Heritage celebration at the Goddard Branch Library in Maine South, graciously hosted by one of the librarian's neighbors, Les Eaglewind. There will be potentially food, activities geared more towards ages 6 to 11, but younger ones are welcome as well. If you have any questions, I'll be in Fellowship Hall. 4 to 5.
Real quick from the Connections team, next Saturday night, potluck dinner, 6 o'clock, Maya? 5:30? Huh? 5:30. Come one, come all. Bring goodies. Secondly, next Sunday is New Member Sunday. If there's anybody here who is interested in becoming a member, talk to Aaron, talk to Maya, me, whatever. We'd love to have you be a member. Thanks.
Once again, our worship has come to an end, but our service continues next with an opportunity for refreshments and conversation. May yours be a wondrous and wonderful week.